Welcome to another episode of the Modern Facilities Management Podcast, brought to you by Stratum. I'm your host, Griffin Hamilton. This is the show where I interview industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights into modern-day facilities management. From hospitality to commercial real estate and everything in between, we'll learn what it really takes to succeed as a facilities manager. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Modern Facilities Management Podcast. Today, I am very excited to have Mike Isted join me today from Train Together. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, sir. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me along to talk to you today.
Absolutely. This is, I was telling you before we hit the record button, this is actually our very first video podcast. So glad you could be the first face that people see out there.
Well, it's not a pretty one, I'm afraid. There we go. It's a tough old paper round this face has had, and I must apologise too for my hair. My post-COVID hair is looking exceptionally fluffy and potentially unwashed. But I think that's my earphones, etc. I also have to get used to looking at myself while I'm talking. It's almost borders a line of madness and sycophantic sort of behaviours. But yeah, it's good to be here, and whatever value I can add over the next course of the next hour or so, or however many episodes you do, very happy to do so. Yeah, thank you for offering the platform.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and very much appreciated. And before we jump into just FM in general and going into your background, I do want to apologize and bring up my slight ignorance with the last three letters over here with MBE. So give the audience a little bit of your background and explain how I don't know what the heck I'm talking about with the MBE.
Bless you. Well, thank you. I was awarded an MBE in 2009 for operations in Iraq and Afghanistan as a result of military service. I retired in late 2013, 2014 after 26 years in the British Army. During that time, I was in the infantry during that time, and I've seen operations in Northern Ireland, in Afghanistan 3 times, Iraq twice, and I mentioned Northern Ireland, that was 5 times. And had a fantastic career. But you have to draw a line at some point, and the Army was very good enough, the British Army was very good enough to invite me to become an officer. In the British Army, we call it a late entry officer, but an officer, which is an officer from the ranks. But it was a time of my life, to be perfectly frank, after the 3rd tour in Afghanistan, where I had to weigh up what was important to me. Was the needs of the Army more important than me and my family? In which case, well, stay in. But if the needs of me and my family I deemed were far more important than the Army, it was time to leave. And that was the right thing to do. It was difficult. And I was worried and a little bit scared of what the future would look like. You know, I left school on a Friday, had a party Saturday, cleaned up Sunday, packed my bags Monday. I was on the train to Shorncliffe in Folkestone in the UK, southeast coast, in Kent, on the Tuesday. I didn't hang around. I was shaped and formed by the Army at the age of 16, essentially to be, an infantry soldier. That which is someone who's trained specifically extremely well in most armies around the world to close with and destroy the enemy in whatever fashion that takes. So, a great career and very successful as well. I retired as the Army as a regimental sergeant major, a warrant officer class 1, which means something slightly differently in the American Army. The warrant officer corps is not the same as that. And I was one of the first few British Army warrant officer class 1s to be selected for a command sergeant major appointment on operations in Afghanistan, which was fantastic, the pinnacle of my career, where I was essentially in a management and leadership position for 37 countries of soldiers, Americans, Canadians, Australians, and everybody, French, everyone from the coalition. If there was a soldier there, then ultimately, particularly in the training role, I was their senior soldier, their senior leader. So to retire shortly after that was a fantastic thing. And as I said, the MBE is an order in the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth of Her Majesty, and it goes back to 1917. Is an order formed by King George V, and it comprises of 5 particular levels, if you like, of membership. The lowest level, if you like, is a member of the British Empire, and then it goes up to officer, commander, and so on, all the way up to Dame and Knight. And these are honours. They're not awards. They're honours issued by the Queen, or by Prince Charles, or by a member of the royal family. I do believe that Duke of Cambridge now does it. And they invest you into the order. And depending on the level at which you are awarded, you are that is as a result of something you have done for the country. Usually at national level, something that will affect the people at national level for the good and benefit of them is going to be a member or even an officer of the British Empire. And the more influence you've had in your specific area of expertise or specialism, clearly the higher up in the order you will become. Earlier on, you mentioned the wonderful Sir Elton John. Well, who in the world has never heard of Elton John? His commitment to charity and to initiatives all over the world, and of course to the music industry, has deemed him as a knight. I was awarded it for supporting operations in Iraq and Afghanistan in the area of improvised explosive devices and creating tactics, techniques and procedures to defeat the improvised explosive device threat to the British Army and to the United States Army. And as a result of that, I was awarded the MBE. That was a bit of a rattle. Was that all right?
I mean, it's kind of hard to summarize that much of a career into 2 minutes. So I would say kudos to you.
Thanks. Yeah. It would be a little bit self-indulgent if I carried on, but I'm sure that for those listeners who have some military service in any army in the world, whether that's the British Army or the American Army, and only because I've referenced the American Army, the US Army, then they will understand exactly what I'm talking about. You can summarise it fairly quickly. 26 years, left as an RSM, had the option to stay, but it was time to leave for the family. All my 9 lives had gone, Griffin. It was definitely time to go.
Which then, I think, making that transition on over to facilities management, to me, doesn't seem as natural as it may have been for you. Tell me about that.
Yeah, very good point, because here's the thing about facilities management, whether you're in Fiji, Australia, United Kingdom or America, very, very rarely you're going to come across somebody that says, well, I was at college and I knew I wanted to be a facilities manager. We've all sort of fell into it. It seems to be one of those industries where we find ourselves. We wake up one morning and then say, you know what, I'm in facilities management. How did that happen? And I'm exactly the same, to be frank. I had no idea what facilities management was. Of course, once you've gained experience in facilities management, you realise that actually it's all about the language that's being used. If we all used a common language, then we'd find that actually my 26 years service, a good portion of that was dipping in and out of facilities management. I was as a young lance corporal, the first run on the promotion ladder, I may well have had a task of, monitoring the cleaners, right up to being a company quartermaster, where I'm responsible for, providing a place and locations for soldiers to sleep, eat and work out of. I'm also managing and supporting the people, and I'm also ensuring that processes are in place so that they can have churn and turnover of supplies and food, and before you know it, you manage people, places and processes, and you think, well, crikey, I was doing that when I was in the army. And then, regimental quartermaster, you're doing exactly the same as a company quartermaster, but you're doing it at a much sort of higher level amongst an entire battalion, or 650, 700 plus troops. And for those listeners who still serve, or have served longer, or achieved a higher rank as an LE, for example, who are a quartermaster, well, they are the pinnacle of what a facilities manager is all about. They own all of the risk, cost and quality to their people, places and processes that they're responsible for in that barracks, or that armory as they refer to it in the US Army, or in the location they're responsible for. So yes, you're right. I fell into facilities management, but I didn't wake up one morning and say I want to be a facilities manager. I was actually on a program called the Troops to Teachers program, which was a fantastic initiative, but very poorly supported by the UK government. A failure of the Department for Education and their political support, unfortunately, which meant that a great deal of soldiers, men and women, who had committed themselves to supporting young people in the learning place in schools and colleges were let down. It was an initiative that was copied from a fantastic, very, very successful initiative in the United States called the Troops to Teachers, where you will have, someone who has military service behind them in the class, and that is not there as a threatening presence. It is there as a nurturing and coaching presence. And what we found in the UK, having looked at the American model, was that, we need that. We need people who have military service behind them, who have life experience, who can perhaps be a role model, who perhaps can be someone that young people who have difficult upbringings and difficult constraints and problems in their life can gravitate to. And the concept of Troops to Teachers was exceptionally well received by the military community. And so that's what I wanted to do, which, if you sort of fast forward, that's pretty much where I am now, except not in a sort of in a mainstream curriculum sort of environment, of a school environment. But that journey led me into mentoring young people with behavioural difficulties, and also into prison, where I looked after inmates, teaching them maths and English for 6 months. A great experience there, great exposure to the social, economic and legal difficulties of those who just make a mistake. Just because you've gone to jail doesn't make you a serial killer. We all make mistakes. It's just those of us who've got caught making that mistake. So I found that very interesting, and then moved on to Nottingham College, a local college to me, where I was then the lead coach, or the head of department for uniformed public services, setting the right conditions for young people to become police officers and paramedics and soldiers and marines, and taking them through a fairly sort of academic process mixed with physical activity, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then one day, to the point, Griffin, then one day I received a phone call from a friend of mine, who was an officer who used to serve with us, who now runs his own specialist recruitment company known as Force Select, for those of you UK, Force Select. And he phoned me and said, how's life, and how's the things since you've been retired? At that point, only less than a year and still on the programme. So I just engaged in normal conversation. And then he said, listen, I've got a great opportunity for you. How about head of facilities for the largest insurance group in Europe? Now, this is coming over the phone from somebody who is really struggling to find themselves in the academic tutoring world, and who has been let down by the Troops to Teachers system, which was coming to an end, with no guarantee of employment, no guarantee of a job. I had a wife, 3 children at home, 2 of those very young, bills to pay for, etc. Money that I'd received from the military, which I used to offset my own training, and things were running out. And although I was loving the job that I was doing, which was having an effect on young people wanting to become police officers and soldiers and marines and firemen, here was now someone saying to me, do you want to have a crack at being head of facilities for the largest insurance group in Europe? So the first thing I said was, well, how much are they going to pay? And when I found out that it was an extraordinary amount of money, it was a near on, six figures. And there I was struggling at the time on, 20, 23, 24,000. And, of course, the first thing I done was, I'm afraid I warmed towards Adam Smith, the famous father of the Wealth of Nations book in the 18th century. It was on the back of a £20 note up until February 2020. And he said, everyone acts within their own self-interest. In their private life, it's about security and love. In business, it's about money. It doesn't stop them loving their product or service, but it's about money. And when I was offered pretty much an open door to go straight into this position at six figures versus, what I was on at the time, it was too good to turn down. I left those learners, which to this day I still feel slightly guilty for, because they gravitated to me and they warmed to me, but I'm friends with them now. This was 5 years ago. And I jumped at the opportunity for facilities management. But before I did, I then said to the guy that phoned me, what the hell is facilities management? I'll be head of anything if you're going to pay me that much. But what is facilities management? And of course, he then, being an expert in recruitment and matching at a senior level soldiers, men and women from the armed forces of the UK into fairly, corporately senior positions and good salaries and good terms and conditions and so on, then spent the next 10 minutes telling me what I already knew, which is what I already told you. I've been managing facilities, as all soldiers do, men and women, as all firemen do, as all police officers to a certain extent do. We all have a touch point with facilities. We just don't understand the language that's used. We say supplier relationship management in the corporate world of facilities management. In the military, it's getting a grip of a cleaner that's lazy. So once I was told, well, look, you do have a great deal of experience, you just don't understand the language that's being used, and that will be your professional journey. It won't be about understanding risk, cost and quality. It will be about understanding the language and the processes that are used. The facilities, I'd done that. I'd made sure that fire extinguishers were filled once a year, that the sprinklers were working, that the fire exits were the right size for the property, that cleaners came in at the right time, that operational meetings were taking place. I had done all of that already in the military. So having this 10-minute phone call was really enlightening, and at the end of it, I pretty much knew that I wasn't in that much of a bad place to take on a position like that. And so that was the start of the journey of the corporate sort of FM mic, if you like. Yeah, that was another long explanation, wasn't it? Sorry. All your listeners have turned off.
I would say probably not, but who knows? I think you and I are pretty boring people, so who knows if they're
Thank you.
Listening. But
Thank you very much.
That's an important point to make, though, because you said it earlier, so many people, they essentially fall ass backwards into facilities management, and there hasn't necessarily been a standard, okay, here's your title now, and here's the across the board what a facilities manager does. There's not, like, each organization defines it in their own unique way. Obviously, there's overlap, industry to industry, company to company. But there's not I'm an architect or an engineer now. There's not that clear line of delineation there. So it's important to make that point of, you were doing it your entire career. You just didn't know it.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly that. You are doing it your entire career. In fact, the Institute of Workplace and Facilities Management, which is the worldwide recognised and certainly in the UK are awarding body for ratifiable best-in-class facilities management qualifications in accordance with the qualifications framework, right from level 2 right up to level 6 and 7 actually. They are our best practice awarding organisation. Previous to that, they were known as the BIFIM, British Institute of Facilities Management. Again, same principle, same onus, best in class, and a real drive and desire to professionalise facilities management. To this day, it is still part of their main strategy, and they rely upon organisations like Train Together, like myself and many other members, out there at the various grades, to raise the profile of facilities management as a viable professional career pathway, and not from somebody who's 50, not from somebody who's 50, as of mid-March, but for someone who's 20, for someone who's 18, for someone who's 17. And as we can talk about later, the right conditions can be set so that can be the case. What we're doing at the minute is we're trying to professionalise by recognition, when actually the best way to professionalise is to start from scratch. And there are lots of great initiatives right there around the world that are doing that throughout their different countries. But to go back to the point of me mentioning BIFIM, they asked, so the first thing I wanted to do was to embed myself into BIFIM as much as I could, professionalise myself, get professional recognition, and buy into the professional pathway of facilities management as my new career outside of the military. It was now not teaching, it was now facilities management. I had the same emphasis that I had in the military. I'm going to be the best. There's going to be no one better, and I'm going to know what I'm talking about. I'm going to know my numbers, and if you're going to talk facilities management to me, you better bring a double A game. That was my intent. Well, it's all very well having an intent in an industry that you've just dipped your toe in, but actually making it realistic, well, you are up against it. And my strategy was, right, bed in with the British Institute of Facilities Management, understand what it is that they're trying to do, read all of their documentation, all of their best practice guides, go to as many meetings as I can, meet as many people as I can. And part of that journey was an introduction from, I'd like to call him a mentor. We've lost touch of late, but that's a difficult thing about mentoring. You never see the end result, do you? But there was one particular person who really sort of steered me towards BIFIM. And along with my own strategy of professionalisation, that's what I've done. And actually, BIFIM reached out to me and said, would you come along and give a presentation on your transition from the military to facilities management? Because one thing we've realised, and we understand and acknowledge, is that there are a lot of facility managers throughout the full spectrum of operational, tactical and strategic areas that are previously from the armed forces or emergency services. And what we'd like to be able to put something together that explains how that transition happened, and how their previous experience has been of benefit to them, and what gaps, if any, exist as a result of their previous career into facilities management now. So I did. I put a presentation on. About 60 people turned up for it in London, and the feedback was really good. And what was really, really nice, to be honest with you, was apart from my own direct reports who were told to go, was lots of soldiers turned up who were on the cusp of leaving the military and wanted to come along and listen to somebody who was their own, who can speak their own language, and who automatically, by virtue of service perhaps, has that unwritten sort of trust element about them. The military community is a strange one. It is a strange one outside of it. Inside of it, it is very clear cut. And there are lots of words that are automatically layered upon someone else who's in the military, particularly the military. And this is the same in the US military. Loyalty, integrity, discipline, courage, respect for others, commitment, nurture, coaching. These are all words that we understand and live by since day one. And when you come across someone who is previously military, you automatically layer those words on that person as trustworthy until such times as they prove otherwise. You without question give those words. So for a veteran or for someone transitioning to civilian life, there's nothing better for them to listen to somebody else who's been through that journey, because until such times as otherwise is proved, they will layer on trust, loyalty, integrity, discipline, courage, diligence, commitment, and respect for other people. They will automatically do that. So for me, it was not the fact there were 60 people there. It was the fact that there were 4 soldiers there who, and various different experiences, were moving from military life to, civilian world, and wondering what was waiting for them, and looking at facilities management as possibly a way to go into it, by virtue of the noise I had made at that time about, hey, if you're in the army, there is a viable career pathway for you. And it's called facilities management, and it was what you were doing as a company quartermaster, it was what you were doing as a regimental quartermaster, it's what you were doing as a platoon sergeant, as a section commander, and as a lance corporal. Hell, you were doing this when you were a private soldier, filling up fire extinguishers. So yeah.
And I guess to piggyback there, and a quick question: why do you think folks from the military transition so well into facilities management? Because we see that pretty consistently here in the States as well. Do you think it's the qualities that you mentioned, or is it the experience they gain from their service time, or a mixture of both?
I think it's 2 things. I don't think, ironically, it's got anything to do with facilities management. I don't think, in other words, let me ratify that. I don't think it's because someone who left the army as a sergeant knows exactly how to carry out an operational meeting with a cleaning company, or knows exactly the requirements for fire safety in an accommodation block. I don't believe that is the case. I believe it's 2 ways. I believe it's operationally and strategically focused. And again, let me ratify that. Soldiers and non-commissioned officers, they are doers. They get on and they get things done. They know what the boundaries are. They know what needs to be achieved. They don't need to be micromanaged. They don't need to be supervised. They just need to be told what needs to be achieved, not how to achieve it. They are incredibly autonomous, incredibly trustworthy, and you can always rely on them. They get things done. And in the facilities management world, soldiers, men and women from the armed forces particularly, and I'm focusing on the armed forces because that's where my experience is in facilities management, in the operational function of facilities management, do exactly that. They learn over time the language, and they learn over the time all the other nuances of facilities management, but when it comes down to it, they get the job done. And not just done, they get it done far quicker, far more effectively, far cheaper, and far better than, and this is a generalized statement, but I'll go to town and debate, far better than their civilian counterpart, in my experience. I'll sort of prevent a podcast war there by saying in my experience. And that is because they are shaped by a very rigid structure on how to achieve that. And it is a benefit and it is a con, it is an advantage and a disadvantage clearly in civilian life, where we need to be a bit more nuanced, a bit more ranged, a bit softer. And that comes with time and experience, I'm afraid. But the bottom line is, when you need things done and you need it done properly to reduce risk, and you need it done to a certain level of expertise, if not better, then you won't get any better than relying upon soldiers. And I say soldiers, I'm talking anyone who wore a uniform, particularly in the armed forces, men and women, pretty much up to the non-commissioned officer level. And then there's a sort of step change, because now you're moving from operationally focused to strategically focused. And of course, in the facilities management world, we have 3 focused spheres of influence in facilities management. We have operational, tactical, and strategic. And one of the problems in facilities management is we silo those areas. We think, oh, you're in the operational area. Oh, right, you're in the tactical area. Oh, right, you're in the strategic area. When actually, of course, tactics is a spectrum right away across operations and strategy. People from the armed forces understand that. A young non-commissioned officer is not just going to be operationally focused. They are going to make snap decisions that are going to affect the tactics overall, or invoke a tactic to achieve the higher end state or the strategy. But I mentioned that there was a clear line, and that clear line for me is probably at senior NCO, probably sergeant and up, which again is different for the US Army. For the US Army, you're pretty much talking, sergeant first class and up. And at that point, the game changes, because people who are sergeants and up in the British Army, or senior NCOs, let's call them, across the armed forces, and certainly sergeant first class and up in the US Army, they are a different breed. They are a different kettle of fish. They are then reshaped by the military to think completely differently. The system uses their experience as a foundation on which to build upon higher level thinking, strategic thinking long term and the end goal, not just now. Think long term and the objectives and goals and decision points that you'll need to come across in order to meet the end goal. Whereas operationally focused, we're looking at now and what's next. And that's why I say there's a clear line there, because those people who have senior NCO experience and up into warrant officer for the British forces and into more, top sergeants and company sergeants and battalion sergeant majors in the US Army, at that level, these guys are on top of their game. They can create you a strategy plan for a division move in a blink. They can create you a battle space management plan, a click of a finger. They can manage hundreds of locations on operations in a country that isn't even theirs without breaking a sweat. And they can do it quickly. And of course, in civilian life, in corporate world, nothing happens quickly. We get a whiteboard, we sit around, we use nominal group techniques, we ask everyone's view and opinion, we weigh things up, we go through the problem solving and decision making process, and before you know it, you're 9 months down the line and you've just made a decision. Whereas because of the risk element of people's lives in the military, from senior NCO and up, they're shaped by their education and training to be able to understand what the strategy is, what needs to be achieved, how it needs to be achieved, what the courses open are, what the best solutions are, the options open, which is the best plan, how am I going to get it done, what resources do I need, how long is it going to take, and at the end of it, who's going to help me review it. And what they do is they make it happen very quickly. And so you usually find, again, generalised statement, and forgive me for this, I'll say in my view, then I'll get away with it. But you usually find that in facilities management, server side and client side, that if you come across someone who's fairly senior in account management, an account director, a C-level suite, for example, an ops manager, depends, of course, on the size of the business and exposure and so forth. But if you come across somebody who is very, very clear on what needs to be achieved and how to achieve it, there is absolutely no grey areas with them, then you can almost bet your bottom dollar they've had some form of military experience. And in my view, that is where the line is. So it's not about whether they know intimately facilities management. It's actually about their life exposure to operations, tactical decisions, and strategic high-level thinking. And that's why they fall into facilities management particularly very, very well. I've not come across anyone from the armed forces or emergency services or from the public sector, from that matter, and I'm referring to my own learning partners, which is well over 120 people, and in government areas. You are not going to come across somebody who is not well set as a result of being in that environment as a career. All the boxes are ticked, and it's all to do with operational know-how and doing and strategic level thinking.
Yeah, and on the point of the actual doing and the ability to think on your feet and do it very quickly and effectively, I think, in my view, it looks the day-to-day of a facilities manager is so, it varies, right? There is no I'm waking up and here's my 9 to 5 and here are my 10 items that I have to do every single day. You have to think on your feet, and you have to be able to really come up with a new strategy on the fly. And that, I think, is a good segue into what modern facilities management really looks like, and trying to classify that. And that can be rather difficult, right? Where you mentioned earlier, trying to professionalize and standardize facilities management. Where we're at right now, where we're going, I guess talk to that. Talk about what modern facilities management really is.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you mentioned about there's no 9 to 5, and you're absolutely right. Of course, we can layer on a time frame, but actually, there isn't. And there's a saying that the IWFM likes to promote a lot, and that is the great thing or the incentive for facilities management as a viable career pathway. That every day is different. EDID. Every day is different. Doesn't matter whether you're looking after one location or whether you're looking after 160 locations. Every day is going to be different. To your question about what does the modern facilities manager look like, I think the modern facilities manager looks like a conscientious individual who knows what the structures of their main management functions are. And the reason why I say this is, of course, my exposure and my experience with regards to training and coaching FM professionals, service side and the client side. I've got some learning partners who are very, very experienced in facilities management. These guys, ladies and gents, have got 20, 30 years, 40 years on one occasion. My oldest learning partner is 72 years old. Now, please, this person has forgotten more about facilities management than I or other people I know. But the modern facilities manager, in my view, is somebody who is consciously aware of the key functions of what facilities management is. What's it about? Because it doesn't matter whether you're in, New Zealand, Australia, China, or America, or the United Kingdom. What really makes facilities management function is fairly clear cut. And that is underpinned by a professional opportunity to have an academic journey for individuals who are fairly young. And the reason why I'm being fairly sort of, not ageist, certainly not, but saying young people, because that is the future of facilities management. Look, I'm 50. I want to retire at 55. I want an allotment, a flat cap, a Jack Russell and a pipe. That's what I want. It doesn't stop me loving what I do, but that's what I want to do. I'm not the future of facilities management. I'm just doing my bit now to help as many people as I possibly can professionalise. But the young person who's going into sixth form right now, the 16-year-old, the 17-year-old, the 18-year-old, they're the future of facilities management. And IWFM have had some great initiatives where they've reached out to schools and colleges and introduced what facilities management is in order to start that journey with those people who are young, deciding what they want to do for the rest of their lives. I think we can do more. I think there's much more that we need to do with that. And IWFM own these initiatives, and I have no doubt that they've got future initiatives to work in. And only last year, before COVID, was a big push towards promoting facilities management as a viable career pathway to young people in school. So that's the first thing, underpinned by that journey. And if that's not taken up by young people in mainstream education, that it's then offered to more experienced people as part of an apprenticeship journey. There's a couple of words I just don't like. If I could remove them from my lexicon, I would. The first is lexicon, because it took me about 40 years to realise what it meant. The next one is expert. There's no such thing as an expert, and I'm afraid anybody who comes to me or any of my colleagues and who announces themselves as an expert, well, turn right, gain height, and go away. Nobody is an expert. There is no such thing. Unless you're the only person in the world that knows that particular subject matter, you are not an expert. And there are no experts in facilities management. There are specialists. There are exceptionally experienced people, but there are no experts. So I don't like the word expert. I don't like the word lexicon. And the last word I don't like, God, I'm really sorry about this train together. I hate the word apprenticeship. I don't think it is appropriate. I don't think it is fit for purpose, and I don't think, to a certain extent, it paints the complete picture. Because on one hand, it's a wonderful word, and on another hand, it's not appropriate. Let me ratify that. For somebody who is a young person, I say young person, it doesn't have to be a young person actually, forgive me, for anybody who was seeking new employment or a change in employment role or employment sector, and who came across an opportunity for a facilities management apprenticeship, and for that role to be open to them, and for that person to join an organisation as an apprentice under what we call a recruited apprenticeship scheme. Brilliant. Apprenticeship is worth its weight in gold, and I think it's fantastic. And that is what we automatically perceive of an apprenticeship. Well, when you say apprentice, of course, you're thinking of a young Merlin or someone with a spot on their nose, age 17 or whatever. But actually, with an apprenticeship, that's what it's about. Let's set the conditions for this person to be a specialist in this area and really know the industry. And recruited apprenticeships do exactly that. And it is a mixed journey of understanding new knowledge and skills, and sometimes layered on top of that, an academic journey of understanding, as we said earlier on, facilities management language. For the professional development journey, apprenticeship is also used as an academic journey. You could be, for example, and I'm looking at my own learning partner base, as I call them, some of those have 30, 40 years experience in facilities management, yet they're on an apprenticeship, which is actually a professional development journey. So, for the sake of a word, it's not really fit for purpose. It's more of a sort of apprenticeship levy funded professional development journey. But the important thing is that at the end of that apprenticeship journey, they're then assessed in what we call an Endpoint Assessment. And that is far more valuable, in my view. That's probably a bit hard, Mike. Let's rewind. That is as valuable, in my view, as an IWFM certified qualification, because it says, Griffin has been working for the past 2 years at the standard of a level 4, rather than a qualification which could mean that Griffin has locked himself away in a small cupboard under the stairs for 4 months and studied that which he needed to produce evidence for a level 4. So they're really good. It's a really good thing for that. So, and I know this has been a long answer, but to go back to your original question, to add some clarity of where we are now, we're in the Mike's head, aren't we? But to go back, you asked about how do we professionalise. So the first thing is that academic journey. The recognition of the two different types of apprenticeships, the promotion of apprenticeships for young people who are starting off their professional career, and the continual promotion of facilities management by organising bodies like IFMA, Global FM, IWFM, as facilities management as a viable pathway and a viable career, and of course professional development. And then I said at the very beginning there, I said it's conscious identification of the 5 of functions of facilities management. Doesn't matter, New Zealand, China, Mongolia, there are certain things that you have to achieve as a facilities manager, or in facilities management. Let's broaden it rather than just sort of to an appointment. And those 5 key areas are really key. And there are 5 areas in my view. You've got, maintaining operations. You've got to meet the end user requirements. You've got to make sure people are comfortable in their workplace, that the lighting is right, the heating is right. They've got places to park. If they're disabled, they've got somewhere to park. That there's breakout rooms and all the sorts of things in order to support core business for the people. All of this underpinned by people, places, and processes. But that first area, maintain operations. Keep it going. Support people in the workplace, deliver what it is that they're there to do. Number one. Number two, financial efficiency. You are always in a position where you can create cost synergies or induce cost savings by your exposure to the FM marketplace. And that is working with your procurement partners, and that is also reaching out, if necessary, to specialist FM consultants when it comes to strategic sourcing of suppliers. Sadly, in facilities management, it is not a problem. It is an area of facilities management that you need to accept up front, that you will be held to account for. And that is, you'll be held to account for a bottom line draw. Facilities management is, I'm afraid, always seen as a cost to the organisation. And if you understand that from the word go, because you ultimately are personifying a cost of an organisation by your presence. In other words, you're managing it. Why are you costing me, £16,000 for all of my fire reviews that we've just had to do and so on? If you know that up front, then turn it around on its head and actually ensure that you bring value to an organisation, that you invoke value add as part of that financial efficiency. Financial efficiency isn't just about saving money. Financial efficiency isn't just about creating cost synergies. Financial efficiency is about making sure that that business doesn't have to pay out any more than it needs to. And that where you can, you add by creating value adds. Not just alongside cost initiatives like bundling and so on, but also that you manage it in such a way that actually the quality doesn't reduce. You work with your suppliers for financial efficiencies, in partnership, not in supplier-client relationship, which has been formed, way back since the Industrial Revolution. A supplier was seen as, you will provide me with this bag of coal at 10 o'clock each day. And that supplier would work all night digging that coal to produce that bag. When actually, who needs who here? So financial efficiency is one of those areas as a facilities manager that, you need to understand that area. It's as important as the others, but it is certainly something you do. If I took a job as FM in America tomorrow, that company would want me to invoke financial efficiencies. The next one is business continuity. Sorry, yep.
Mike, on that note, I think historically maintenance operations has been viewed kind of as a black hole, right? Where it is just a money suck. And I think recently, over the years, the perspective has changed from that just being a black hole of, cash leaving the business to this is an investment. Do you see that recently that has gained traction, like that change in mentality?
Yeah, absolutely. Not to turn this too much into a sort of workshop, but cost benefit analysis and risk of return. And certainly return of investment, and those particular sort of financial strategies are certainly areas that businesses are looking at now. They're saying, well, you know what? If we pay for this now, will we benefit later on? And actually, what is the risk? What is the risk measurement of us not doing it now, and then picking it up later on? Yeah, I think the world post-COVID, it's a sort of new term, isn't there? Pre-COVID. People say pre-COVID. Well, let's forge our way out of this. Let's look post-COVID. I think we're in a changing world. And it's very, very difficult to identify change when you're smack bang in the middle of it and it hasn't been formulated as a process. That's called history. And when you're smack bang in the middle of it, you'd be wise to identify that something is changing. And what's changing right now is businesses now throughout the world are saying, hey, we don't need all these properties anymore. We don't need to maintain a physical property presence in towns across the UK anymore. We don't need to pay expenses anymore. Actually, the morale of our staff is better because they haven't got to spend 2.5 hours travelling to work. Their capability has gone up and productivity has gone up. And hang on, wait a minute. Why did we all gather around this workplace in the middle of a city centre paying £16 million worth of rent a year? Why did we do that in the first place? Is it so that, that we expanded our human need to have social contact outside of those that we live with every day? No. Then why did we all come together in the workplace in the first place? To make sure that we're all aligned? Yeah. To make sure that we all understand the strategic direction of the organisation? Yeah. To make sure that we all understand what it is that we're here to do, to sell, to make money, to improve our service, our product, whatever? Yeah. Do we all need to be together to do that? No. Then why are we together? Because in the Industrial Revolution, we had someone leaning over our shoulder, making sure that we were doing the work we needed to do. And that is the only reason why, organisations and businesses, to be perfectly frank, spent an extraordinary amount of money and invoked direct costs by virtue of property and space management. And actually, that's where we're moving into now. I'm certainly not saying that businesses don't need a physical presence anymore. Of course not. But now I'm saying, yeah, you're right, Griffin. Businesses are now saying we need to think smarter here. We need to manage our space better. That's what we need to do. We need to manage our space better, and we need to think differently about our workplaces and how they work, and how they tick. What business as usual looks like. What does our routine and tempo look like? And if that means using technology platforms in order to create that tempo, then if it's for the good and benefit of our people, which raise morale and well-being, and therefore invoke them to work harder for the good and benefit of the business, which increases the bottom line and profit margin, then why would you not? And it doesn't matter whether you're a small shop selling wool. I don't know where that analogy come from, by the way. Or whether you're a corporate organisation. Pretty much across the line. I'm very lucky I've got exposure to a huge sort of, business, huge exposure to all the different sectors by virtue of my learners. They're all thinking the same thing. All businesses are thinking the same thing. And even if they don't invoke something as a result of thinking it, they're still thinking it. Our thinking is changing. And I think, to go back to your question, it is about invoking financial efficiencies by virtue of managing our space better. And if that means not having quite so much of a property footprint, then so be it. And if that means actually we keep the property footprint that we've got, but we'll rent out a floor, then that's what they'll do. The property and estates management and facilities management sectors, if you want to sort of silo them like that right now, is going through a huge dynamic fluctual change where it is all now emphasis on managing space better. Yeah. I mentioned about the functions of facilities management and the conscious understanding of what those functions were. And there are 5 main areas, basically. Maintaining operations, we mentioned about that. Financial efficiency, we mentioned about that. Business continuity is another one. If you as a facilities manager or in facilities management think that you don't have an influence when it comes to business continuity and maintaining continuity, I refer you back to March 2020. And when all of a sudden now, business continuity management plans and business continuity managers and business continuity consultants even, had not at any time foreseen any form of national lockdown as a result of a pandemic. What was really good about this, and let's pick out some positive things about COVID. What was really good about COVID in locking the country down and locking the world down, as pretty much from that point forward, was to we didn't celebrate it overtly either, but I know CEOs and MDs did, and that was how, excuse the language, bloody resilient we as businesses are. We don't necessarily need a 150-page business continuity plan, which, are I've seen 150-page business continuity plans before, and they could have had a summary on a page, and it would have made much more sense. It would have induced a lot more confidence. but I refer back to my, I'm afraid, mindset of military versus, civilian thinking, perhaps. I'm not saying I'm right. Absolutely not. I'm just saying that sometimes we don't need to write 150 pages for a business continuity plan. If I'm a CEO or an MD, or you're the CEO or MD, and I'm your operations manager, and we're a brand new company, or even you've employed me as your business continuity manager, you're going to say to me, look, I want a plan that if we can't work from this location, it's not going to take us 2 years to get it up and running. We can carry on our business. We can carry on selling our service or product. And what's more, we've got resolution to fix it in whatever. That's why you're here. Go away and create me a plan. You're going to want me to come back and define what business continuity looks like. You're going to want me to come back and say, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to go if we need to recover our work area. This is what we're going to do in the event of an emergency response. And this is what we're going to do in the event of disaster recovery. And more importantly, how we're going to mitigate data loss. Facility managers, I'm afraid, are smack bang in the middle of that. When we say data loss, we automatically think of IT. Yes, we do. And we automatically think of a data center or a data room. Yes, we do. And where is that data center or data room? It's in a building. And who manages that building? Is it the CTO? No, it's not. The person who manages that building is you, Mr. Facilities Manager. So, if you look at continuity of business and you look at disaster recovery as one small area of that, well, you better bring your AA game and go and knock on the CTO's door and understand what his disaster recovery plan is and incorporate that into your own emergency response plan. I have come across some facility managers, and very senior ones too, some of them, who have not had any form of influence or impact into business continuity, and they have they have fallen on their own sword on many times. So a conscious awareness that as a facilities manager, in facilities management in general, you are very much embedded as part of business continuity. We're in existence to support the core business. We're aligned to the strategy of that core business, and it's absolutely vital that we're able to support a business relocate, recover from data loss, or respond to an emergency that prevents a particular location being used. The final two areas, very quickly, really, are legal compliance, and I think probably anyone listening to this, like, is he going to say it? Absolutely, of course. Health and safety and legal compliance. We've got lots of tools out there to ensure that we're able to fit into certain structures that ensure that we're compliant. But without going down a huge compliant conversation, we need to make sure that we meet our statutory legal obligations to make sure that our workplaces are safe. The final one, and probably the most contentious and emotive, and in my view, probably one of the most important, but for lots of different reasons isn't given quite as the importance that it should be. And this is in no way detrimental to any organisation that does promote this as a really main strategic goal, and that is corporate social responsibility and sustainability. We're talking of the environment. We're talking of our moral, legal obligation, our moral and legal obligation to people, to this planet and the environment. And that does not make you, that does not make you, I can't remember the name of the ship now, but it does not make you Greenpeace by saying that. This is about how you interact with the local environment. If you just throw your rubbish away, what about your strategic sourcing of suppliers? Do they have a corporate social responsibility policy? How do they get rid of their waste? Are they compliant? Are they licensed? And so on. Corporate social responsibility and sustainability is something that any of us in FM who are comfortable with the subject could talk about all day. And in my view, my personal view, and to a certain extent my professional view, I think we talk about it far too much. Too much talking, not enough doing. We promote triple bottom line as a way of measurement, yet actually we don't enforce it because it's too difficult to enforce metrically across the board with different organisations. But not one day goes by where we turn the telly on and we don't see some form of impact of environmental disaster that's linked to a hard drive in Hartlepool. And to ratify that, our electronic waste is not destroyed and recycled in this country on the whole. It is valuable. It is sold. It is a commodity, and it is sold to the highest bidder with the least amount of comeback, and usually finds its way on a landfill in Africa somewhere. So corporate social responsibility and sustainability, understanding climate change, really looking after people with modern slavery and ensuring that people are free, giving them a fair wage and a fair salary. I am not from the cleaning industry, but I am a cleaning champion. Cleaners are one of, if not the most important elements and people in your organisation. Do you know your cleaner's name? Is it what I said to our CEO one day, not my CEO in Train Together, but a CEO of an organisation one day, who then told me that she was fantastic and that they'd had her for 15 years. And then I said, "Oh, really? What's her name?" And do you know, he couldn't tell me. Couldn't even tell me her name. Couldn't tell me what her hourly rate was. Which, of course, because she's a cleaner, she's going to be on minimal wage, isn't she? Well, why? We're in a position now where we need absolutely the assurance of COVID-safe environments. Is now not the revolution of the cleaner then? Corporate social responsibility is also about paying people a fair salary for their responsibilities. And in my view, cleaners are the unsung heroes and always have been. We're the first ones to whinge and whine there's a fingerprint on the glass in the centre of the door. Yet we don't look at the huge area that they've cleaned. We see, a cup that's not been put in the dishwasher, and we automatically say the place hasn't been cleaned. What would your workspace look like if you didn't have a cleaner? You going to get the Hoover out, are you? The answer is no, you're not. So corporate social responsibility, waste management, all those sorts of things, sustainability, awareness of environment. So to summarise, and I'm fully aware this is from Mike's rabbling podcast, I'm so sorry, but those areas really are important to me.
Well, people aren't here to listen to me, so
they've turned off at this point. I'm so sorry, ladies and gents. It sounds like I'm lecturing, for the love of God. I'm just going with it. As I'm just going off the however I can to invoke some form of however it helps in a podcast. That's key.
Well, I think going on that last point as far as sustainability, and I think that meshes well with the future of facilities management. Over the last decade, 2 decades, the green movement is certainly real. People are much more aware of their footprint, how to reduce their footprint, and it really does start out with facilities management from a corporate level, making sure your suppliers, they're green, you have green practices in place. And that is where I get excited about kind of the direction and the impact that FM's going to have on sustainability.
Yeah, without shadow of doubt. And, my work title is head of delivery for workplace, facilities, management, and leadership. I think that says it all, really. It's not about me, this is about that title. That title is workplace, facilities, management, and leadership. And that's what, in my view, facility managers are. When I teach management and leadership, and I'm teaching someone or I'm coaching, I don't like to use the word teach. It makes it sound like, you're on a stage looking down at the students and pupils. I don't have that mindset. We don't have that mindset of Train Together at all. We look upon our learners, as is their correct title, if you like, as learning partners. They are experienced people in the workplace. They have a great deal of experience and vocational knowledge. And I've got a little bit as well, and they've got a little bit, and together actually we will find what the key relationships are and the key elements are in order to support you throughout your academic journey on your apprenticeship. This is why we train together, and this is why I call them learning partners. Yeah, those four areas: workplace, facilities management, and leadership. And any sort of area of facilities management or facility management that I've been exposed to uses or has a touch point in all those areas. If you are a facilities manager and you're looking after one location, and someone came up to you from C-suite and said to you, "Are you a leader?" Your answer probably would be, "Well, no, I'm a facilities manager," because you have that title, manager, as a facility manager. Hell, you're one of the biggest leaders there. And if you are consciously aware of that which you are trying to achieve, of corporate social responsibility and sustainability, of business continuity, of legal compliance, of financial efficiency, and maintaining operations, if you know your top lines, if you know that off the top of your head, if you know what's involved in each one of those areas, you also know that you have a great deal of touch point and hook point with suppliers, with contractors, with people. You're there to support core business and be aligned to its strategy. You're there to manage people, places, and processes. And just because someone isn't a direct line or a direct report to you, because they are there to support core business, does not mean that you're not there to support and manage the functions and facilities to facilitate them in order to meet the end requirement of core business. So you are most certainly a leader. I'd like to see the word manager disappear, and I'd like to be called facilities lead, because that is what you're doing. Facilities manager, in my view, is something that should be put in a box into room 101. And never ever be seen again, because it automatically silos you as someone as sort of junior to middle en route to senior managerial role. We automatically perceive directors and C-level as seniors, and facility managers as sort of middle of the road. Ops manager, okay, middle of the road. Well, there is no continuum amongst any business on any appointments for a start. And so it's very, very difficult to understand actually how much influence you have as a facilities manager. Facilities lead, I think, well, that says everything you need to know. And that doesn't matter whether you're looking after one location or whether you're looking after 200. Director of facilities, and if I was a director of facilities, I'd still put facilities lead at the bottom of my signature block, I think. So yeah, I mean, what does the modern facilities manager look like? Workplace facilities management leadership. I think we sort of briefly had this conversation before, but for me, the modern facilities manager, and let's look at now, the modern facilities manager is someone who is conscientiously aware of their functions of facilities that they manage and lead in. That is what the modern facilities manager is for me. And in the academic or in the training and consultation world, I can tell you that I've got some learning partners who are 60 and 70 years old plus. And the reason why I say their ages is just purely and simply so that you can understand how much experience they've got solely in facilities management. And they are on the top of their game. But even when you point out to them that there are 5 key areas that you must be aware that you support, it's the first time they've had it put to them like that. They're not consciously aware that there are those areas that they have got to ensure that it's part of their own appointment strategy in order to support the core business. They're not consciously aware of it until, of course, you say to them, well, look, there are areas that you need to have an impact in order to support core business and corporate social responsibility and sustainability. Oh yeah, I'll do this, that, and okay, great. Financial efficiency. Oh, they're always wanting me to save money. Okay, well, that's one. The end state is even someone with a great deal of experience as a facility manager or facilities manager, after having professional coaching and tutoring, is then consciously aware of what underpins them in their role to support a core business. And for me, that's what a modern facilities manager is. It's somebody who understands that that's what the boundaries are of their function. It's not someone who fell into it and then 40 years later in a chat with a coach then says, oh, I get it now. Because that's just not fair. We should set the conditions for our future from the beginning. And, facilities management is a huge area. Is concierge part of facilities management? Yes. Is a valet part of facilities management? Yes. Security? Yes. Heat and ventilation, air conditioning? Yes. Building fabric? Yes. Pretty much everything has all been coupled together since the oil crisis, when facilities management first came about in the States and then bled out to the rest of the world. Pretty much we have coupled everything to facilities management. Martin Pickford, great name, well known in the UK in facilities management. He created a mind map of the facilities manager. And I don't know what version he's on now, but if you put a search in the internet for Martin Pickford facilities management mind map, you will be staggered with what it is that you see that a facilities manager could be responsible for. And that is the key thing. It is the could, not the should. And of course the must is in those areas, those areas I've mentioned previously. But the range is so big in facilities management that actually, is it time to split facilities management up into facilities leads and operational support? We are seeing businesses change their structures now. Now we're not seeing, we're seeing director of support services or chief support services. We're seeing things like facilities management, property management, estate management, risk and compliance change, all being put together, even with mergers and acquisitions sometimes, with legal elements put together in support services. So maybe, just maybe, post-COVID-19, facilities management is coming into an area of revolution where actually, not from internal strife in the true word of revolution, but from revolution of evolution, that facilities management changes. And it start to be seen far more, well, it is always perceived to be strategic, but actually throughout the operational and tactical areas, that actually maybe it starts to get re-siloed, or certainly, well, not re-siloed, but certainly sort of spread out a bit more, or a bit more less joined into one title, facilities manager, which I think is slightly unfair, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean that it ties everything together as far as just the range of responsibilities you could have, how quickly the industry has changed and is continuing to change, and where it's at right now, and the work that you're doing to really broadcast out, and standardize what facilities management is really very interesting work. And on that, Mike, is as far as folks reaching out or finding you or interested in Train Together, where can they go?
So you can go to our website, just put a search in for Train Together. I believe it's, how do I not know our own web address? I just wanted to make sure that it was .co.uk. It is. So it's you can come along to Train Together on the web. Train Together Limited. Train Together, all one word, and then ltd.co.uk. And you can come onto there. You can have a look at our website. We deliver specialist training throughout various different sectors, right from accounting to childcare to facilities management and leadership, coaching and mentoring, and our clients are, right the way through the range of the private sector, the public sector, and the voluntary sector in the United Kingdom. But that is not to say that we're not here to help, advise, consult, and coach when it comes to facilities management and leadership, which of course can be generalised as a standard sort of area of knowledge that you can put in any country that is not necessarily regulated that heavily when it comes to the functions of it. It's regulated by virtue of safety, and that is the nuance in each country. But when it comes to the coaching side of things, the academic journey, you can get us through there. And we currently deliver level 3 and level 4 Institute of Workplace Facilities Management qualifications. layered on top of apprenticeships, but we also deliver commercial consultant, commercial level training, bespoke training, commercial training, and of course, as perhaps you may or may not expect, I also consult with organisations on their FM strategies and what they're trying to achieve, and the options for standardising their appointments. And our current clients range right the way through the board, from the UK Cabinet Office to the MOD, the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, the NHS Property Services, lots of organisations in the private sector who are server side. These are FM professionals, and I'm in the very unique, humbling position of being their coach, and it's quite, as I said, it's quite a humbling thing. You've got to bring a double A game when you're in a position of a coach for somebody who is an industry specialist in facilities management. If you don't speak the right language, if you don't understand their constraints and their challenges, then you will lose credence. And if you lose credence, you lose trust. And if you lose trust, well, game over. They're not going to listen to you. My 4-year journey as the head of facilities for the largest insurance group in Europe exposed me to huge amounts of risk by the organisation, gave me great opportunity to invoke cost savings and synergies and restructure how facilities management was being provided to them. So, and coming back into the training world, which of course is where I wanted to be in the first place when I left the military. So for me, actually, I like to think of my 4-year time out in the corporate world as a bit of work experience, to be honest. So that I could actually, at a fairly senior level, be able to engage with my peers who and speak the same language and understand what it is they're trying to achieve. So in summary, commercial training, consultancy, and apprenticeships in level 3 and level 4 facilities management, and also level 5 in management and leadership.
That's great. And once again, Mike, I really do appreciate you making the time here for you on this Friday afternoon. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, hearing your story and your insights into the industry. And like I said, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
You're very welcome. It may be wise to split that down to about 80 different. So I've probably bored everyone to death. Split down to 80 different mini series. It's Mike again. Series 32. We'll carry on with the first question that he was asked. So I do apologise for that. I threw myself into giving you the answers as best I possibly could. Because of several reasons. One, I'm very passionate about facilities management. 2, I'm very passionate about people being given the opportunity to professionally develop. And 3, this is a great platform for me to say, look, I'm part of a great organisation in the UK, and this is what we do. And we don't just deliver this. I'm recognised by the IWFM as a certified member. My colleague who also delivers with me is also a certified member of CIWFM. And there are very few of us who are delivering this actively in this sort of environment. In fact, I almost put a challenge out there and say, if you're a CIWFM and you're professionally delivering training and coaching apprenticeships, then do get in touch, because right now I count 3 of us in the entire country.
Well, hopefully that changes.
Yeah, because I'm getting lonely.
Oh, man. Well, again, Mike, once again, thank you for coming on, and we'll certainly stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good luck, and thanks very much to all your listeners. Cheers.